Oh hey, it's that guy from Futurama.
So it's all come down to this. A dungeon and dragon.
The Legend of Spyro the Eternal Night is said by some fans to be one of the worst games in the series. But hold on, is that really fair? After finishing A New Beginning, which is the first in the trilogy, I wanted to move on and give the sequel a fresh look. Is it as bad as people say, or does it actually have some redeeming qualities? Let's find out. The Eternal Night came out in 2007, a year after A New Beginning, and it takes place a short while after the events of that game. Spyro is sleeping in the Dragon Temple and he's woken up by Sparx, who says that Cynder, the big bad dragon they fought previously, has run away. Alright, I didn't talk about the ending of A New Beginning in my last video for the sake of spoilers, so I should probably catch you up to speed. Cynder turned out to be one of the eggs in the Dragon Temple when the Dark Master raided it, which means she's the same age as Spyro. She was kidnapped by the Dark Master and made to be his servant, which is why she was so massive, and she becomes small again after Spyro breaks her free. This happens in the middle of Convexity, which is the place between worlds where the Dark Master is imprisoned. During the scuffle, he does manage to escape, but his spirit isn't quite able to return in physical form yet. I don't know exactly how long it's been since then, but enough time has passed for Spyro to have grown attached to Cynder, and he decides to sneak out of the temple to find out where she's gone.
Quiet. We mustn't wake them.
What? I can't hear you over all this snoring.
When he and Sparx catch up, Cynder says that she blames herself for what happened previously and that she doesn't belong here. She thinks she's too dangerous. Spyro disagrees, but she's already made up her mind and disappears into the night.
Spyro, your place is here. Your destiny is here. But mine is somewhere out there for me to find.
Cynder, I don't want you to go.
Goodbye, Spyro.
Now, can we finally get some sleep around here?
Cynder is voiced by Mae Whitman, taking over the role from Cree Summer. I think she does a great job, but here's the thing. The crux of this plot is about finding Cynder, which means that she isn't in it much. It's a shame because conceptually, Cynder is a fascinating character and it's obvious that Spyro likes her. We just don't see how it got to that point, so new players might not care as much about tracking her down. Oh, I need to point out that Sparx is voiced by Billy West in this game instead of David Spade. Why the change? Absolutely no idea. I will say though that Sparx irritated me here more than I was expecting. I usually like Billy West's voice acting, but I think the dialogue is just more obnoxious than it was in the first game.
I've been only sort of half sleeping with one eye open for weeks now. Alternating eyes, of course. It lessens the strain, but I tell you, it's taken a toll. Hey, was this twitch always there?
Anyway, Spyro falls asleep seconds after Cynder runs off. Oh, okay. He then finds himself in a dream world where he meets Ian McKellen?
Do not be frightened, young dragon. You are not alone.
Okay, it's not actually Ian McKellen, but an actor called Martin Jarvis, a very well-respected actor with an OBE. Fancy. It can't be a coincidence that he sounds like Ian McKellen though. Spyro is played by Elijah Wood, who was Frodo in The Lord of the Rings, and he happens to meet a mystical character that sounds almost exactly like Gandalf. They had to know what they were doing. But anyway, Martin Jarvis sounds awesome, and he's a great addition to the cast. Spyro travels through this dream world, and the mysterious voice reveals his true name, the Chronicler. He asks Spyro to seek him out, showing an image of a tree. So the game isn't just about finding Cynder, but also this mysterious chronicler. That's where I'm going to leave it for now, but I'll talk about the rest of the story later in the video. I'll include a spoiler warning though, so don't worry. But before we move on to the gameplay, if you enjoy this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and smash the like button. I'd really appreciate it. On Spyro's journey, he'll encounter apes. A lot of apes. They're back from the first game, and this time they look like they come straight out of an ancient Egyptian tomb.
The purple dragon.
Yeah, let's talk about the visuals for a moment. The game is dark. I mean, just look at the main menu. It really sets the tone for what's to come. The first area is a nighttime version of the one from A New Beginning, and it's drenched in moonlight and luminescence. Most of the levels are like this. The game is called The Eternal Night, to be fair. Personally, I think it's a bit too much of a whiplash from the first game, but at the same time, I respect that Krome Studios went in this direction. Most of the levels are actually quite beautiful in a twisted sort of way. I think it was From Software's Miyazaki that said you can find beauty in darkness. That was his philosophy when developing Bloodborne, and I think Krome Studios achieved a similar similar result here. The luminescent mushrooms, the jellyfish, the deep purple toxic water. There's just something really ethereal about it. And it's actually fitting that this game is so dark as well, because it's the middle story in a trilogy. I can almost guarantee that at one point in its development, someone at Krome Studios uttered the words, "The Empire Strikes Back," because inevitably, whenever someone is making the middle story in a trilogy, they always mention The Empire Strikes Back. And hey, The Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars movie, so I'm not complaining. The soundtrack is dark as well. You heard a snippet of the main menu theme earlier, and it's the complete opposite of A New Beginnings. Thing is, I like it. I think it suits the game well. The rest of the soundtrack is up to the same quality as A New Beginning and was composed by the same two people, Rebecca Newell and Gabriel Mann. I really hope I pronounced those names correctly. And here's a bit of trivia. They were both part of Spiral Mouth, the a cappella group that made the soundtracks for Crash Twinsanity and Tag Team Racing. Talk about range. Now, it's all well and good to have beautifully dark visuals and music, but the thing is, this is a Spyro game, and at some point, you realise that you're playing as a purple dragon with a sassy dragonfly companion, and at least for me, it caused a bit of tonal dissonance, I guess you could say. Now, back in my New Beginning video, I said it could have had collectibles and more platforming and puzzle sections to break up the combat encounters. Well, colour me surprised when I booted up this game and bumped into a Scriber's Quill, which is a type of collectible that unlocks concept art in the extras menu. There are 40 in the game and each one requires you to do some optional platforming. You have no idea how happy I was to see that. I think it's a fantastic addition. There are also dragon relics. These green ones upgrade Spyro's breath meter and the red ones upgrade his health meter. Unfortunately, there are only 5 of each in the game, and because Eternal Night is linear and you can't go back to levels mid-playthrough, it means that if you miss one or two like I did, you're out of luck until New Game Plus. Considering how bloody hard this game is, it's a slight issue. So yes, let's talk about the difficulty. The Eternal Night is notorious for being the hardest in the trilogy and probably the hardest in the Spyro series. Why? Well, I'll tell you. First of all, remember the forgiving checkpoint system in the first game, where you would instantly respawn in the middle of a fight with all of the enemies you defeated still gone? That has been completely removed. Instead, you get a traditional checkpoint system where if you fall in battle, you'll go back to the very beginning. Coupled with that are more aggressive enemies which charge at you so quickly that it's hard to react. They also stun lock Spyro for what seems like forever, during which time he has no invincibility frames, meaning that they can demolish him in seconds and you won't be able to do anything about it. I absolutely despise this. Stun locking is my least favourite feature in any video game, and I don't remember it being this bad in A New Beginning. I wouldn't be so mad if Spyro had a way to block attacks, but he doesn't. Instead, he has something called Dragon Time, which is a new ability that lets him slow down time. The hourglass in the top left corner of the screen shows how much of it he has left, and it drains quickly. I think the enemies were made more aggressive because they wanted you to use Dragon Time to dodge and defeat them, but it completely disrupts the flow of combat, and also, when it's on cooldown, you'll be left wide open. I think A New Beginning has better combat. It has too much of it, yes, but it's more enjoyable than it is here in Eternal Night. It got so irritating, in fact, that I questioned how much it was playtested. Now, from what I've read in interviews, the game was in development before A New Beginning hit store shelves, but that's still not a lot of time in the oven. My guess is that this is yet another situation where the publishers of Spyro caused the game to come out much too early. I really do feel for Krome Studios because I know they can make great games, like Ty the Tasmanian Tiger and the PS2 and Wii versions of Star Wars The Force Unleashed, which I actually enjoyed more than the PS3 360 versions. Dragon Time isn't all bad though. It's also used for platforming sections where it's a much better fit and makes for some interesting level design. For example, you have these spiky platforms that constantly rotate and you have to slow down time to land on them at the right moment. Then you have these moving pillars which you need to weigh down on one side, then slow time and jump off the other end. It's a really cool idea. The platforming can be a bit finicky though. Lots of surfaces are curved or uneven, so it can be easy to fall off. An example would be these tree branches. It wasn't a massive problem for me, but I can imagine it being a little bit frustrating for other players. And then there are the different breath types, which have been changed somewhat compared to the first game. Fire breath is largely similar, but instead of the secondary attack being a fireball, it's a dash ability that damages enemies on impact, turns you into a fiery rocket of some kind. Very satisfying to use. Ice breath lets you fire off polar bombs, earth breath causes Spyro to conjure a massive flail of energy that bludgeons enemies, and electric breath creates an orb that can explode and make enemies fly up so high that they crash back down with a squish. When Spyro regains his breath breath abilities, he has to go through a tutorial section in the dream world. Thankfully, these sections are much quicker than the first games and are more interesting thanks to the visuals and additional platforming. The level up system has been streamlined too. Instead of having separate experience bars for primary and secondary attacks, both are now merged into a single experience bar for each breath type, with 3 tiers each. And you know what's just flat out awesome? The Fury attacks returning from a new beginning. Here, they sound so powerful that they peaked my audio capture. And trust me, you'll be using those Fury attacks a lot more now that the game's difficulty has shot up. Like before, you'll be collecting gems to restore Spyro's various meters in the top left. Red gems restore health, green gems restore breath energy, purple gems build up Fury, and blue gems give experience. Instead of them all being contained in one large gem, like the first game, there are separate crystals now of each color type. It doesn't really change much, but some green crystals take an unlimited number of hits, so you can constantly refill your breath energy, which is nice. One thing that's missing from the Eternal Night, however, are flying sequences. I loved them in A New Beginning, so I was sad to see that they're gone. Instead, there's a new minigame that pops up every so often where Spyro has to strafe and shoot fireballs at flying enemies. They're a bit finicky because you have to time how long you hold the attack button for, otherwise you might overshoot or undershoot. They're not my favourite sections in the game, but they're not terrible, I guess. You can also use Dragon Time, which I figured out later, to the enemy's horror. I mentioned New Game Plus earlier, and yes, you can replay the story with all of your breaths unlocked. This time, it's a good way of hoovering up the collectibles you missed on your first run through. Also, by beating the game, you'll unlock 5 dragon challenges in the extras menu. I only played the first one, but I found it fun because the breath type changed at random, a bit like Gun Game in Call of Duty. By beating all 5, you get a special reward, one I'll talk about later. Now, I want to mention that this game had multiple versions, just like A New Beginning. I played the PS2 version for this video, but I also had the Wii version as a kid. It has motion controls for combat, which is mandatory unless you have a classic controller. I did not have a classic controller. That means Kid Me managed to beat this ruthlessly difficult game with waggle controls, and I honestly have no idea how I managed it. If you want to play the Eternal Night yourself, the Wii version technically has better visuals, but only slightly. That was par for the course with games back then. So that's the Eternal Night. Is it as bad as people say? You know what? Despite how angry I got at the combat and its constant stun locking, I'm gonna say no. From the way some people talk about it, you'd think it was worse than Big Rigs, but I don't think it's even close to that level. It's a deeply flawed game, absolutely, but a bad game, it is not. At the end of the day, I think the Eternal Night is a mediocre video game made by a capable development team. However, I will say that it's one of the weakest games in the Spyro series. Even the story is a disappointment because of how meandering it is, not really doing much that's interesting until the final section of the game. And this is where I'm going to horn dive into spoiler territory, so if you want to head out now, that's totally fine. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Okay, first of all, the Guardian Dragons are hardly in the game. They appear at the beginning, but as soon as Spyro heads off on his journey to find Cynder and the Chronicler, it's just him and Sparx. That means not a lot of Gary Oldman, which makes me sad, even if he did sound like he was suffering from sleep apnea in the first game, and I can relate to that because I have sleep apnea. At one point in Spyro's journey, he thinks he's found the tree from the Chronicler's vision, but it turns out to be a massive boss fight. After defeating the boss, he and Sparx are captured by pirates and made to compete in an arena where they find Cynder. They meet her for all of 2 seconds before she's captured again by different apes, and now our heroes have to fight their way out of a pirate fleet. Oh, and those French moles from Mount Boyzit have also been captured. At one point, Spyro gets a letter from them written by Hunter of Avalar saying that he hopes to meet Spyro at some point. That's a cool bit of fan service, but it's a strange place to put it. This whole story arc culminates with the battle against the captain of the fleet, who is being manipulated by 2 talking parrots on his shoulders, one of whom sounds like Mr. T from the A-Team.
That ain't nothing. We don't need him to take out this book. I pity the fool that messes with us. Welcome to the world of hurt.
Sparx punches it in the face, which is a very satisfying moment, I have to say. Do you see how messy this is? Eternal Night is supposed to be a story of how Spyro catches up to Cynder and the Chronicler. Why is a significant portion of the game taken up by pirates? It's weirdly similar to Uncharted 3 Drake's Deception, which also had a meandering detour through a pirate fleet. At least that game had really epic set pieces in that section. Probably the most epic in the entire game, actually. Spyro does eventually find the Chronicler though, thanks to a map in the captain's ship. I don't think it justifies the section being so long, but hey-ho. The chronicler resides on an island that looks the same as Spyro's dream world, and when they meet him, it turns out that he just wanted to shield Spyro from the inevitable. The leader of the apes, Ghoul, who commanded the raid of the Dragon Temple when Spyro was just an egg, has taken Cynder to the Mountain of Malifaux, also known as the Well of Souls, bit Indiana Jonesy, which was created by the Dark Master. Malifaux is the Dark Master's true name, and he was the first purple dragon in recorded history. On the night of eternal darkness, a natural phenomenon involving a lunar eclipse, the souls of the dead roam the Well of Souls thanks to a concentration of dark energy, but only for one night. Thing is, Malifaux, who escaped his convexity prison, wants to break through to Spyro's world during the lunar eclipse and return to physical form. The chronicler says that he's absolutely strong enough to do just that. When he escapes, he will corrupt Cynder again, which is why Ghoul has brought her there. Spyro refuses to allow this, so he leaves for the Mountain of Malifaux, catching up to Ghoul just before the eclipse happens. He starts a fight with him but gets caught in the blast of dark energy right as the alignment happens, causing him to become so overwhelmed that he turns into this thing. With the ability to shoot dark energy from his mouth, he easily overpowers Ghoul, and when Ghoul taunts him, calling him a coward, Spyro does this. He flies up to Cynder and Sparx, still filled with dark energy, but Cynder manages to snap him out of it. They try to escape, but the only exit collapses. Spyro realizes that he has one option left and instinctively freezes the three of them in a crystal, keeping them safe while Malifaux escapes and begins his conquest. In a post-credit scene, we see that a certain cheater has found them, which will lead very nicely into the final act of this trilogy. Man, what an ending! I remember seeing it as a kid and being blown away. It's so depressing and yet so epic. The Dark Spyro scene, in my opinion, goes so far in the direction of edgy that it comes right back around to being awesome. I have my complaints with the story as a whole, with Cynder not being in it nearly enough and the pirate section being ridiculously long, but I cannot deny that the ending is great. I love how bold it is. Malifaux is going to escape. There's nothing Spyro can do about it, but he can at least save Cynder and ride out the storm to fight another day. And I've saved the best for last. After completing those 5 dragon challenges I mentioned earlier, you unlock the ability to play as Dark Spyro at any point in New Game Plus. You can also unlock him with a cheat code, which is that's what I did. Dark Spyro has a super powerful breath of energy, a fury ability that demolishes everything, and even this outrageously awesome flurry of attacks by pressing the triangle button or the Z button on the Wii nunchuck. Yeah, the Legend of Spyro the Eternal Night does have its moments. I really respect what Krome Studios attempted here. They tried to fix what people didn't like about A New Beginning by adding more collectibles and platforming and puzzle sections, and even if they fumbled the combat, I can see that they clearly poured as much effort and passion into the game as they possibly could within the time frame they were allotted. I mean, I'd hesitate to recommend it to people nowadays, but if you do find yourself a copy, you'll certainly be in for a ride. And that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to the channel and smashing the like button. It really does help. With that, I hope you have a wonderful day or night, wherever or whenever you are, and I will see you next time.